Kilalanin natin ang official and updated complete full lineup ng North Allstar para sa nalalapit na 2026 PBA All-Star. Point guards, Juan Gomez Del Llano, 16,488 All-Star votes, 6 feet, 163 pounds, 25 years old, 19 points, 7.2 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 1.2 steals, 44% three-point shooter, 76% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Adrian Nukum, 11,772 All-Star votes, 6 feet, 167 pounds, 26 years old, 14.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 1.5 steals, 21% three-point shooter, 58% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Cedric Bearfield, 5,968 All-Star votes, 6'2", 190 pounds, 29 years old, 19.2 points, 4 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 29% three-point shooter, 66% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Andre Karakut, 5,664 All-Star votes, 5'8", 180 pounds, 30 years old, 4.3 points, 1.8 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 14% three-point shooter, 68% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Shooting guards, CJ Perez, 12,716 All-Star votes, 6'2", 187 pounds, 32 years old, 19.1 points, 3.8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2 steals, 33% three-point shooter, 58% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Chris Newsome, 8,836 All-Star votes, 6'2", 190 pounds, 35 years old, 15.7 points, 3.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.3 blocks, 21% three-point shooter, 86% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Jeremiah Gray, 7,980 All-Star votes, 6'5", 205 pounds, 29 years old, 8.1 points, 3 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 0.4 steals, 31% three-point shooter, 85% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Richie Rivero, 6,590 All-Star votes, 6'1", 198 pounds, 27 years old, 16 points, 5.6 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 0.6 steals, 34% three-point shooter, 68% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Paul Lee, 6,206 All-Star votes, 6 feet, 200 pounds, 37 years old, 5.1 points, 2.9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 0.7 steals, 29% three-point shooter, 83% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Small forwards, Stephen Holt, 12,564 All-Star votes, 6'4", 195 pounds, 34 years old, 14.2 points, 6.3 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 30% three-point shooter, 80% free throw shooter ni PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Marshall Lassiter, 7,552,000 All-Star votes, 6'2", 185 pounds, 38 years old, 7 points, 2.6 rebounds, 0.7 assists, 1.1 steals, 47% three-point shooter, 50% free throw shooter in his PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. Jason David, 6,266 All-Star votes, 6'2", 191 pounds, 29 years old, 5.6 points, 3.8 rebounds, 0.6 assists, 38% three-point shooter, 60% free throw shooter in his PBA 50th Philippine Cup averages. CJ Cancino, 5,808 All-Star votes, 6'3", 175 pounds, 26 years old, 18.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 1 steal, 0.5 blocks, 34% 3-point shooter, 81% free throw shooter in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Power forwards, Calvin Abueva, 23,404 All-Star votes, 6'3", 209 pounds, 38 years old, 23.6 points, 11.9 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.8 steals, 1.2 blocks, 28% 3-point shooter, 77% free throw shooter in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Troy Rosario, 11,334 All-Star votes, 6'7", 218 pounds, 33 years old, 10.2 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 0.5 steals, 0.5 blocks, 28% 3-point shooter, 42% free throw shooter in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Xavier Lucero, 8,830 All-Star votes, 6'6", 205 pounds, 26 years old, 17.1 points, 10.1 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.1 steals, 2 blocks, 28% 3-point shooter, 68% free throw shooter in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Ralph Koo, 6,178 All-Star votes, 6'4", 210 pounds, 28 years old, 3.1 points, 2.1 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.3 steals, 34% 3-point shooter, 11.6 minutes per game in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Centers, Japet Aguilar, team captain, 25,104 All-Star votes, 6'9", 235 pounds, 39 years old, 13 points, 8 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.1 blocks, 54 field goal percentage, 58% free throw shooter in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Justin Baltasar, 11,564 All-Star votes, 6'9", 250 pounds, 28 years old, 14.9 points, 14.2 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 0.9 blocks, 29% 3-point shooter, 71% free throw shooter in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Justin Arana, 9,236,000 All-Star votes, 6'7", 231 pounds, 26 years old, 15.7 points, 3.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 0.8 blocks, 55 field goal percentage, 59% free throw shooter in his PBA 50 at Philippine Cup averages. Ito ang official and updated complete full lineup ng North Allstar para sa nalalapit na 2026 PBA All-Star. Sa tingin niyo mga kababos, sino-sino ang deserving mapasama sa final 12-man lineup ng North Allstar? I-comment nyo na po yan sa baba.